there are no bad teams, only bad leaders. Do you think there are exceptions to this? If so, how do you know you're a part of the exception?
That is a quote from the book Extreme Ownership, written by myself and my brother Leif Babin.
Sure.
And it is a quote that I don't want to say we stole, but we appropriated from David Hackworth, who said there's no bad, I think he said no bad officers, no bad units, only bad officers. Mm-hmm. And Napoleon, who said there's no bad regiments, only bad colonels. Mm-hmm. And we said there's no bad teams, only bad leaders. And the question is there an exception to this? Mm-hmm. And how do you know if you're part of the exception? Well, actually, there's a big exception to this. And the exception is that there are bad leaders with good teams. That is true. That can happen. Sometimes you get a bad leader that is running a really, really good team. So that's an exception. I guess it's an exception to this rule. Maybe. That's the way I took it. So you get a team that's so good that they just continue to perform, even though they have a horrible leader. They perform despite their bad leader.
Gotcha.
Now, what this does not prove, I always say leadership is the most important thing on the battlefield. This doesn't disprove that statement. Mm. You'd think maybe it does because, you got a bad leader and you got a good team, then maybe leadership isn't that important. That's wrong. Actually, what it proves is that leadership can come from any level inside the organization. That's what it proves. And it proves that because I've seen that over and over again when I was running the training for the SEAL platoons. Eventually, I didn't care where the leadership in the platoon was because I realized that it was a real hard thing to hope for, that you had the person that was in the leadership positions, like the platoon commander or the platoon chief, to assume or to figure that they were going to be the leader that you wanted them to be was a big assumption to make. Mm. And so what I realized after training for a while was like, even though I wanted the leaders to be those senior guys who were supposed to be taking leadership, eventually I realized I didn't care where that leadership came from. As long as there was a couple of good leaders, you would end up with a good SEAL platoon, and the platoon would be on track. Now, maybe the question is what this person is hinting at. The exception being, is there an exception that if there's a bad team, maybe that team is just so filled with bad people that they can't get the job done? That's the kind of exception he's talking about. We're failing because the team is so bad.
Even though the leader's good.
Even though the leader's good, but the team is so bad that's an exception to the rule. Yeah. Well, guess what? Who's responsible for the people on the team? Who's responsible for training the people on the team so that they can get good at their job and they can perform with excellence? Or who's in charge of getting rid of the people that are subpar so that the team steps up their performance? Well, the answer to all those questions is the leader. So if you're on a bad team and you're leading the team, it's your fault. And there's no exceptions to that.
Yeah.
Zero.
Yeah, I'm over here trying to think of the exception, but just what you said, it's like it kind of negates any.
Hey,
excuse.
this let's take a real simple example of like a sports team, right? Oh, the sports team got dealt a bad hand, and now the people on the team. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to train those people. Who's responsible? I'm not saying you're going to start performing right now, but you can get on the trajectory where you'll be good eventually. Yeah. Now, if you just blame, hey, I got a bad team, well, guess what? Then you don't put any effort. Guess what? You're going to continue to be a loser.
I'm the exception.
Yeah, my team is just so bad.
Yeah. Man.
Train your people. I'm not saying you're a miracle worker.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not saying you can take people that don't have any skills and instantly through your leadership turn them into incredible performers. Yeah. No, that's not going to happen. But guess what? As a leader, you go out and you bring people into your team that are good. You do train the people that you do have up to the best of their abilities, and the people that can't perform the way they need to perform, you get rid of them.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
That's it. No real exceptions. Other than, you can have a good team with bad leaders.
Yeah.
Only because there's good leaders somewhere in there.
The exceptions thing, I think it's healthy, in my opinion. In regards to this and most other things, where if I or we start thinking that we're the exception, so we don't have to put in like I don't know, like the work or whatever. Not necessarily the work, but the, you know how, like, okay, we'll take this one. No bad teams, only bad leaders. But, you know, if I say I might be the exception to this because my team is so bad, it's kind of like, aren't you kind of doing a little cop out there kind of thing?
You 100% are. The bottom line is if you don't take ownership of what's going on, then you're not going to perform well.
Yeah.
If you just blame your genetics, then that means, okay, well, then I'm not going to get in any kind of shape whatsoever. Then guess what kind of shape you're being? Junk.
Substandard.
Substandard.
Yeah.